God bless America. Hello, everybody. I am the Talk Radio Protege, and this is the Protege program on this fine Tuesday. I hope you're all enjoying your week. I hope everything is going spectacular for all of you. But let's get into the reason why John Wayne's face is now in the thumbnail of my video. I think this is the favorite video, my favorite video that I've recorded, just because John Wayne's face is going to be in the thumbnail. But these two individuals, as it turns out, they are law professors in Ivy League schools, Amy Wax and Larry Alexander, paying the price for the breakdown of the country's bourgeois culture. Now, at first glance, I don't understand why they would call it a bourgeois culture, but let's just get right into what they wrote. And I'm going to do a little bit of skipping just so that I don't end up reading this whole thing verbatim to you. Too few Americans are qualified for jobs available. Male working age participation is at a Depression-era low. Opioid abuse is widespread. Homicidal violence plagues inner cities. Half of all children are born out of wedlock. More are raised by single mothers. College students lack basic skills. High school students rank below those from 24 other countries. All factually correct statements. And I emphasize this because these statements are going to be, quote, categorically denied in a few moments. The causes of these phenomena are multiple and complex. True. The cause for anything, especially in our modern society, is very rarely, if ever, just one narrow thing. But implicated in these and other maladies is the breakdown of the country's bourgeois culture. Okay, what is the bourgeois culture that has been broken down? Maybe that'll help me understand what they mean by bourgeois culture. That culture laid out the script where we are all supposed to follow. Get married before you have children and strive to stay married for their sake. Get the education you need for gainful employment, work hard, and avoid illness. Go the extra mile for your employer or client. Be a patriot ready to serve the country. Be a neighborly, civic-minded, and charitable. Avoid coarse language in public. Be respectful of authority. Eschew substance abuse and crime. Okay, that is the current intellectual elite culture. You don't have children before you have a partner that you're willing to make a commitment towards your children for in the intellectual elite. You get the education you need for gainful employment. You work hard, you avoid idleness. Go the extra mile, be a patriot. This is an increasingly minority culture in the United States of America. And it's the quote-unquote silent majority that came out for Trump that holds to this culture. You think about the people, and they're going to talk about this here in a minute, that hypocritically cling to this culture because this is how you be successful. This is not the culture of any one race or ethnicity or age group. This is the culture of successful people. And these two authors are going to continue to talk about that as we go on. These precepts range from the 40s to the 60s, could be followed by people of all backgrounds and abilities, especially when backed up by almost universal endorsement. So from the 40s to the 60s, almost everybody followed this culture, if you will. Not everyone abided by these precepts. There were always rebels and hypocrites. Hypocrisy is the homage vice versa. Even the deviants rarely disavowed or openly disparaged the prevailing expectations. Whereas today, we have public media figures that disparage these practices while practicing them themselves. We kind of have a 180 in the culture where we have successful people that practice the bourgeois culture while they tell people out in the masses to not practice the bourgeois culture. Of course, not everything was perfect. There was racial discrimination with Jim Crow before the Civil Rights Movement. There's limited sex roles. You had women were expected to be housewives and weren't really allowed to do much outside of that. And pockets of anti-Semitism. Now, I know there was anti-Semitism in Nazi Germany, but outside of that, I don't understand why there is anti-Semitism. Even in Christianity, where it's actually taught that Jews killed the God of the Christians, Christianity doesn't teach that we should hate the Jews because they killed Jesus. So I don't know where anti-Semitism ever comes from, except that except that Jews happen to be really successful a lot of the time, and so people are jealous of successful Jews, and so they call them names because they're successful. They call them names by their heritage. I don't understand. Steady improvements for women and minorities were underway, even when bourgeois norms remained. Banishing discrimination and expanding opportunity does not require the demise of the bourgeois culture. Being successful does not, or rather, banishing discrimination does not require the demise of success, which so far we have preserved, but we're ever in the culture that we're in today, moving towards a place where success is mocked and derided. It's already, I'll get to that in a moment. The trend also accelerated the destructive consequences of the growing welfare state. I skipped a line that's important. The loss of bourgeois habits seriously impeded the progress of disadvantaged groups. And we're going to talk, they're starting to get into what I wanted to talk about a moment ago, but we're going to get into that more even farther on. That trend also accelerated the destructive consequences of the growing welfare state. Taking over financial support of families reduced the need for two parents. The number of single parents grew astronomically, producing children more prone to academic failure, addiction, illness, crime, and poverty. The script began to break down in the late 60s. A combination of prosperity, the pill, expansion of higher education, and the Vietnam War encouraged the anti-authoritarian adolescent wish fulfillment ideal, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, that was unworthy of and unworkable for a mature, prosperous adult society. This era saw the beginnings of an identity politics that inverted the colorblind aspirations of civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. into an obsession with race, ethnicity, gender, and now sexual preference. So the current culture got started in the 60s. We've reached kind of peak capacity where you can't escape the obsession with race, ethnicity, gender, and sexual preference. And it's only a matter of time now, as the cultural pendulum swings, we're moving back in the conservative direction where those things are concerned. Those adults with influence over the culture for a variety of reasons abandon their role as advocates for respectability, civility, and adult values. And that's what I mentioned earlier when I said we have public figures that denounce the bourgeois culture while practicing it themselves. And that's what they've just mentioned here. That the adults in the room that have influence over the culture have abandoned the bourgeois culture, at least in public. I'm going to go ahead and skip on down to this paragraph. All cultures are not equal, or at least they are not equal in preparing people to be productive in an advanced economy. The culture of the Plains Indians was designed for nomadic hunters, but is not suited to a first world 21st century environment. What on the face of this earth makes that a controversial statement? The Plains Indians have their culture, and while it doesn't prepare people for the world we live in today. How is that controversial? While it might not be morally bankrupt, it's just not as good as the bourgeois culture at preparing people to be successful. nor are the single-parent antisocial habits prevalent among some working-class whites. The anti-acting white rap culture of inner-city blacks, the anti-assimilation ideas gaining ground among some Hispanic immigrants. So we've just taken it and said all races, to some extent, have abandoned the bourgeois culture and have somewhat adopted cultures that actively discourage the bourgeois culture. So this is not a race thing. We've said this transcends race. These cultural orientations are not only incompatible with what an advanced free market economy and viable democracy require. And as they say, the bourgeois cultural script is still largely observed by the upper middle class. As they say, to re-embrace the bourgeois norm, we would probably have, we'd probably alleviate a lot of the things that we're having problems with right now. If people would work hard, they would have less time to be racist. If people would if people were civic-minded and sought out good educations to get the jobs that were required, we wouldn't have people that were underqualified for the jobs that are available. We wouldn't have people that are totally ignorant on the political issues. The homicide rate would go down, opioid addiction would go down, the poverty rate would go down. But instead, we have, many cultures within all kinds of different groups of people that turn people away from success. And here's the paragraph that we're going to do a lot of talking about here in a moment. Restoring the hegemony of the bourgeois culture will require the arbiters of culture, academics, media, and Hollywood to relinquish multicultural grievance, polemics, politics, whatever, and the preening pretense of defending the downtrodden. Instead of bashing the bourgeois culture, they should return to the 1950s posture of celebrating it. What is, aside from saying we should embrace the culture of successful people, who in this country happen to be Jewish, Asian, and white, how is that controversial? How is that controversial? Well, apparently the law professors at Penn Law are going to tell us exactly how that's controversial. And it's pretty short, so I'll probably end up reading most of it. We write to condemn the recent statements of our colleague Amy Wax has made in popular media pieces, and we're really only going to talk about the statements made in the article we just went through. In an op-ed published recently at Philly.com, Wax and a co-author wrote, "All cultures are not equal." Yes, I would say that cultures that behead non-adherence to the culture are inferior to cultures that do not do that. I would say that cultures that prize hard work and family values and taking care of your fellow human beings are superior to cultures that do not advocate for that. I think most people would agree with that. Going on to claim that various social problems would be significantly reduced if, here's the big mistake in this letter, the academics, media, and Hollywood would stop the preening pretense of defending the downtrodden. No, that's not what was written in the letter. Let's go back. Let's grab that last paragraph. Academics, media, and Hollywood must relinquish multicultural grievance polemics and the preening pretense of defending the downtrodden. See, it's not defending the downtrodden that we need academics, media, and Hollywood to stop doing in order to bring back the culture of success. It's the multicultural grievance politics that come with the preening pretense of defending the downtrodden that we need academics, media, and Hollywood to do away with. Is a blatant misrepresentation of the statements. In an interview with the Daily Pennsylvanian about the op-ed, Wax was quoted as saying that everyone wants to go to countries ruled by white Europeans because, in the phrasing of the DP article's author, Anglo-Protestant cultural norms are superior. Okay. So you're denying, you're condemning the statement that everyone wants to go to countries ruled by white Europeans, as if that is false, because they do. Where are all of the economic migrants and the war refugees running to? They're running to white European Anglo-Protestant countries. They're not going to their fellow Arabs to find refuge from the war. African economic migrants are not going farther into Africa to find better economies. They're coming to Europe, they're coming to America. And here's where I really get ticked off at these bourgeois professors. Wax has every right to express her opinions publicly, free from fear of legal sanction. That's where the sentence should end. Wax has every right to express her opinions publicly, free from fear of legal sanction, and she may do so without fear for her job due to her position as a tenured faculty member at Penn. That's what the sentence should say. Instead, these 33 bourgeois academic, I'm running out of words, impugned the First Amendment. And this is important because we do not question these rights. No, that's a lie. You've questioned the rights by saying, thanks to the First Amendment. As if the First Amendment did not exist, you would pursue legal sanction against Wax for the words that she said. And you say you don't question the rights. You say you don't question the important role that principles of academic freedom play at your university. But you've decided that her views need to be condemned because you don't believe in academic freedom. See, your words say that you don't question the First Amendment or academic freedom, but your actions, as in you writing this letter, says something else. I agree that Wax's right to express her opinions does not make her correct or insulate her from criticism, but you people are totally false when it comes to this issue. We categorically reject Wax's claims. Oh, so you reject all of Wax's claims without exception. Do you, in fact, reject the claim that too few Americans are qualified for the jobs available? Do you reject the claim that male working-age labor force participation is at Depression-era lows, which it is? Do you reject the claim that opioid abuse is widespread? Do you reject the claim that homicidal violence plagues inner cities, which it does? Do you reject the claim that almost half of all children are born out of wedlock? I'm not 100% sure about that one, but I wouldn't be surprised. Do you reject the claim that many college students lack basic skills? Do you reject the claim that high school students rank below those from 24 other countries, which I know is true because I've seen the graphs? You reject facts, you 33 bourgeois airheads. I hate it when this phrase that I'm about to say is used in movies because it comes across as silly, but history will record that you idiots are wrong and Wax is right. And what is your evidence for rejecting categorically, without exception, Wax's claims? You believe in the ideal of equal opportunity to succeed in education is best achieved by a combination of academic freedom, open debate, and a commitment by all participants to respect one another without bias or stereotype. Even though you've already rejected, or I like the word that Diversity in Comics somewhat coined, prejected. You rejected before consideration Wax's statements because of your bias and your stereotype of her beliefs. You don't believe in academic freedom because you think Wax ought to be fired. She ought not to have the protection of her of her tenure or the protection of the First Amendment. You reject open debate because you don't believe in the First Amendment, and you reject the commitment by all participants to respect one another without bias or stereotype because you refuse to drop your bias against the culture and the politics of the successful because of the stereotypes of white supremacy. I think I'm out of words. Yeah, I think I'm out of words. Whew. That's going to do it for this one. Good golly. I can't get over how ludicrous this is. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, I hope you'll leave a like and subscribe. If you're watching on VidMe, I hope you'll leave a like, leave an upvote, and a follow. Come back. I'm uploading video, at least one video every weekday, so I hope you'll come back and watch more in the future. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful evening, good night, and God bless.